Hello, everybody. I'm Vince White. I am an employment attorney, but we're not here today to talk about employment law. In fact, would you say a personal injury attorney? Is that the best way to describe you, sir?
Yes, I'm a personal injury attorney. I represent people who get hurt in accidents.
Wow. Can you give everybody just a brief introduction? I'd love them to know your name and a little bit about where you're located and what kind of clients you're looking for.
Sure. My name is Michael Jaffe. I am a partner in a law firm called Pazer, Epstein, Jaffe, Fine, and Gazenput. We are in downtown Manhattan on Vesey Street. My windows look out at the Freedom Tower and the Oculus. It's been an interesting run down here. I've been here for 30 years. Uh, my clients are all people who get hurt in accidents, whether it's a construction site accident with a worker that falls from a scaffold or a ladder or gets crushed by something that falls on him or her while they're in the course of a construction, demolition, alteration of a building or a structure. But I also handle other catastrophic injury cases, automobile accidents, premises accidents, staircases that are not to code, elevators that don't function properly that cause harm. Really, anytime something traumatic happens, and there are consequences, significant consequences. That's where I step in to try to help people get to the positive outcome.
I love that. It's been tough for us to find a personal injury attorney that we feel comfortable sending people to. Not, listen, there's a lot of good personal injury attorneys in the world, but I want to be sure, we had a conversation last week that I felt was incredibly positive. And we know some people going back almost 15 years, some of the usual suspects now dearly departed, unfortunately. But it's interesting that I knew you from early in my career. And I mean, you're 30 years of success at this point. Am I right?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. 30 years has gone by in a flash, but I started as a young lawyer, learning how to try cases, learning how to navigate the courtroom, and understanding the law as it applies to personal injury litigation. During the course of my career, I was fortunate enough to become the president of the New York State Trial Lawyers Association, and I got very involved in working to protect accident victims' rights, maintain access to the courthouse so that people can right their wrongs, and really getting a much broader spectrum of experience in the personal injury field by expanding beyond just the litigation of a case to the being able to maintain the rights to bring that case in a court of law in the state of New York. It's been a great run. I really have no complaints.
Yeah. Yeah. I often think of personal injury attorneys as the most powerful of the plaintiff's attorneys. Would you agree?
I, of course.
I mean, it's amazing. People get after me and they're like, "Oh, you don't lobby enough, you don't do this, you don't do that." And I always come back with, "Who do you think I am? A personal injury attorney?" And the data on what personal injury attorneys do to keep access to the courts for people, it's interesting. You have a lot more pull than like an employment attorney would, right? Like if I call up a congressperson, they say, "What do you want?" Congress people frankly call PI attorneys saying, "Hey, could I get a donation?" It's a very different vibe. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, that's in fairness, that's not my experience. My
Oh,
experience is more that we constantly feel like we are under attack by those that would take away people's rights. And so when you're under that kind of an attack, when your clients' rights are not maybe going to be able to be exercised because an insurance lobby or corporate lobby is trying to strip them of their rights or at least water them down and cap them, it gets our backs up. We are fighters. Personal injury attorneys are fighters. We don't know a day where we are not having an argument with somebody about why we're right and they're wrong. And so I don't view it. I don't mean to say jaded because that's the wrong word, but I don't view the personal injury bar in the way that you described it. I view us more as the underdogs of the world that are trying to always fight to make sure the underdog wins. And
that's fascinating.
yeah.
I I think employment attorneys all wish we were PI attorneys, successful ones though, right? Like we look at our cases and we say, "Oh, we get a couple of $1 million cases, here and there." PI in our minds, it's 10x the value for every case over our cases, and we just view you guys as so powerful. Which is it's interesting. So in your view, it's more of an underdog role, and to me, your industry is the biggest of the plaintiff industries. Like,
I would when you're phrasing it in the way that you're phrasing it now, I would say there is some merit to what you're talking about. The plaintiff's personal injury bar, the cases that we encounter are perhaps much more impactful than the wage claim that somebody's got for a few hours lost. Not to minimize that, the importance of that. It's very important that one be paid their proper wages. But when you've got somebody, for example, I represented a construction worker who slid down a wall on a ladder that fell out from under him. He fell about 16 to 20 feet and he blew out both of his arms, destroyed. He was about 30, 32 years old. He would never be able to use his right arm again. He had limited use of his left arm going forward from there. Uh, how do you not take the weight of that world on your shoulders and do it right? And therefore fight like mad to make sure that that guy's rights are protected throughout. So that was my first construction case I ever handled. It was about 20 years ago. And after that, I said, this is it. This is the fight that I need to have because throughout that case, I came to understand how under attack his rights were at all times by those that would eliminate his ability to see daylight in a courtroom. And at the end of the case, I mean, he sat across from me weeping tears of relief that he'd be able to take care of his family. He had a disabled wife, a disabled child. He was the only breadwinner. Now he was disabled. And he said, you helped me to feel like a man again. And that really opened my eyes. It's just so important that we not take it for granted that one has access to justice and the ability to right a wrong and convince six people in a jury box that there is correctness to the claim. So yes, that becomes very powerful. In that sense, you are correct. It becomes very powerful as a message, and it becomes very powerful as a positive argument that you must make.
thank you. And just to the viewers, that's why I wanted to share this, gentleman. It's not all employment, excuse me, not all personal injury attorneys are created equal. In my opinion, a lot of them, they'd be on here with a sales pitch, not a statement of responsibility to our clients. Like, this is what we must do for our client. And that's the perspective and the sincerity that I'm thrilled you're here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, what's the ideal client for you? Well, if somebody was, watching this video and saying, "Hey, I've been harmed," who's perfect to give you a call?
The perfect, the ideal, the client that I'm looking to work for is the client whose world has been turned upside down. As long as I can establish liability, which is obviously the first step in any case, is there a responsible entity that caused the harm? If I can do that, and then there is enough of an insurance policy, a corporate asset, something that I can pursue, that I can get somebody their result that will make a difference to them and not make them feel like they did it all for nothing. Those are my ideal clients. My ideal clients, they call me up and they say, I've had the worst of the worst thing happen to me, and I need to have somebody guide me to daylight. And that's what I'm looking for. There are lots of firms out there, there are lots of plaintiffs lawyers out there. There are tons that will handle volume, modest cases. And there's absolutely something to be said for that. They should be doing exactly that. There is a need for every person's rights to be exercised if they've got rights to exercise. I focus more on the much more significant damage cases where somebody is, you get one body, right? You get it for the rest of your life. And as you get older, you begin to realize how tenuous your hold is on that physical. And when somebody loses that hold because something really bad has happened to them, that's my perfect client to see if I can represent them and get them to that positive outcome.
Yeah, and we're in the same realm in our field where we do tend to handle the larger cases. If someone's out there watching right now and they're saying to themselves, "Listen, I don't know if my case is big enough for this gentleman," should they still contact you? Can you set them on the right path? Maybe send them to someone out? Like, is that still someone who should reach out?
Absolutely. I have taken on cases that started very small. And I've said to the client, I wouldn't normally handle a case this size, but I don't want to turn you away, number one. And number two, there is something going on here that may actually turn into more than what you think. There was a man who came to me. He was on a construction project and he broke the tip of his middle finger. It was a very small case. And I said to him, this is not a case I would normally take. I'm reluctant to, and he said, I've been turned down by 3 or 4 lawyers who said the same thing. Please, could you just help me? He was a union laborer. He needed his hands. He couldn't with that tip of the finger. And it turned out that the fingertip injury turned into a condition known as reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which is now known as complex regional pain syndrome. It's debilitating. And his hand went from a fully functioning looking hand to kind of shriveling up because it wasted from the musculature and the nerve problems that developed from CRPS. And he never worked again as a construction worker because he lost the use of that hand. I didn't expect that to happen. I just took the case in and said I felt bad. I felt bad.
You
And
just
so,
wanted to help.
you see what I could do to help you out. Maybe I'll be able to settle it and claim, and it won't take years and years, and we'll get you on your way, and you'll get back to work. But when it developed into that, all of a sudden, what was a modest case at best turned into a multi-million-dollar case. And thankfully, I was there to help him because I knew how to litigate a construction case, and I knew all about complex regional pain syndrome, which is a very complicated presentation in terms of the medical that you have to understand in order to explain it to a jury. So everybody should call me. If you have any kind of a problem, call. If it's not a case I can handle, I'll point you in the right direction or let you know why nobody would ever take it.
And I appreciate that's something our industry fails at. People will call up and attorneys will be like, "Oh, I'm too busy," and they won't explain why they're not taking a case. And
Mm,
that's a problem because you get people who think they have a $30 million case saying, nobody will help me, nobody will help me. And then they get on the phone with an attorney who finally is honest, and it can be tough. It can that conversation like here's why we don't think this is really all that valuable. That's tough to hear. I appreciate you taking the time to have those conversations.
they're
That's
very hard conversations to have when you have to tell somebody that. We actually have a law in the state of New York that is outdated. It's our wrongful death law. The wrongful death law in the state of New York, we are one of 2 or 3 states that are still in the 1800s. We don't recognize the value of a person's death other than by their pecuniary loss to the survivors, meaning how much money were they earning and who were they supporting. So occasionally you'll get a call, and it's the most heartbreaking call you can get, a child who gets killed instantaneously. You can't prove that there was any pain and suffering, and you can't bring a claim for pecuniary loss because they're children. They're not earning any money. And you've got to explain to a parent that there is limited to no value. As crazy as that sounds, there's limited to no value for a child's loss, the loss of one of their own children. So you have to have these hard conversations. What choice do you have?
you say that, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think a lot of my peers would just tell the person, "Oh, I don't have time to talk to you," because they don't want to have that hard conversation.
It
And
should.
that I think it's a disservice. I think, listen, we do well in our industries. That comes with responsibilities, which is the point you've been making. So I really appreciate you doing that. I think we're already kind of showing folks why you, but if somebody, if you're advising a family member, a friend, what to look for in a personal injury attorney, what does that look like? What's the ideal personal injury attorney?
I give my cell phone out to my clients. I am accessible to them at all times. It's a burden, but it's one that I'm willing to bear because the significance of the impact of a serious personal injury case on somebody's life, it's not something that you can easily explain until somebody's going through it. So when somebody is calling me on a Saturday at 10 a.m. saying, I need to discuss this with you, I know that they need to discuss it with me, right? It's important that you be accessible when your life is upside down and when your client's life is upside down, so that they can get to you and they can say, help me make it through Saturday. Because I am stressed beyond words that this is a problem. And every time I talk to you, it helps set my mind at ease. That is one of the most important things I think that your lawyer can do for you as a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer. There are lots of us out there that are very good lawyers. I don't profess to be the end, the be all end all. I'm good. I'm really good. And there are a lot of my colleagues who are really good, and I think we would share the same sentiment towards each other. The thing that separates me and a handful of others from the rest is we're excellent at what we do. We're articulate so that we're able to explain to a client and a jury exactly what the claims are and why they are compensable to the degree that we're requesting. And number three, we develop a strong relationship, a strong bond with our clients. There are lots of lawyers out there who they hear a client is calling, they turn to somebody and say, "Who is that? Help me. I can't remember who that client is." If you call me and you're my client, I know who you are. We can have a conversation about your entire file. It's all in my head because I take it very seriously and very personally.
Quick note to the viewers. I do not share my cell phone. This gentleman is, I believe, a managing partner of a law firm sharing his cell phone with his clients. That is unheard of. And I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't do it. We have a hotline for weekends and nights. Something urgent comes up, you can get a partner on the phone. It could be me, but this is impressive. It is frankly unheard of. That's amazing. Um, I feel like I don't know that you could get that anywhere else, in all honesty. Um, okay. Advice for young attorneys. I think objectively, empirically, you are a success. Uh, What would you tell the upcoming the youths of our plaintiff bar?
So I teach every year. I teach young lawyers and not young lawyers various aspects of what we do within personal injury litigation. I'm presently the co-chair of our this New York State Trial Lawyers Association Labor Law Committee, and so I lecture every year or moderate every year on that topic. But I also lecture on general practice of personal injury cases. And the one thing I say to every young lawyer out there is grab hold of any file anybody will let you grab hold of. Work any file you can. Get it as broad a section of experience as possible. Look for the file that fell behind the radiator, the one that nobody wants to touch because it's got bumps and turns and twists, and everybody that looks at it says, "Oh, it's that file." Make that yours. Those are the files you learn the most on. How do you navigate the hardest case? Because if you can navigate the hardest case, the not as hard case becomes exponentially easier to get from point A to point Z if you need to. So my best suggestion and find a good mentor, by the way. Find somebody who's willing to sit with you, teach you, show you what's right, show you what's wrong. You, as a young lawyer, should develop a very thick skin. Every litigator has to have a very thick skin, or you're going to crumble without that. But if you do those things, get a good mentor, have a very thick skin, and work every file you possibly can, and get into a courtroom, you're gonna be leaps and bounds ahead of the guy that you graduated next to.
Can confirm that is tremendously good advice. I got my start to echo your advice. 6 weeks in to a litigation career. Basically, I was handed a trial that was going forward in federal court in 2 weeks, and they said, "Don't worry, you can't commit malpractice. The case is already dead. We don't know why it didn't get dismissed in summary judgment. Here, you've never done a trial. Go."
Great.
Wild, wild for a law firm to do that.
Yeah.
And I just said, "Well, can I get an experienced litigator? Like, can I at least, get someone who's done this before?" And they're like, "Sure." And they assigned someone who sort of kind of done a trial. And it got my start. I mean, that was a tremendous learning experience. We got a little lucky.
Yeah.
Tremendously good advice.
And you can look back at it and you can draw from that experience. My
Yeah.
first trial was 2 or 3 months into my becoming a lawyer, and I stood up in court in a huge courtroom in Queens County picking a jury. I had 6 or 8 people in the jury box. The rest were in the gallery waiting for their turn to come up. And as I'm talking to the 6 or 8 people, this tremendous snoring started from the gallery. Somebody had fallen asleep, and they were making sure by their sleep noises that I would be completely rattled. And I turned bright red. I didn't know where to look. I called for a 5 minute break just so I could gather myself for a few minutes. And I said to myself, this must happen all the time. I just hadn't experienced it until
Yeah.
that moment. And from then on, I said in my own mind, get ready for everything because you just don't know what's about to happen. And I can tell you that within the next several years, I went to pick a jury in Nassau County, and a juror cursed me out in the middle of jury selection. Cursed me out. Didn't like something I was presenting, and I said, okay, let's have a very grown up and professional discussion about this and keep moving forward. So you never know.
You never know. In the first 3 years of my career, I was in federal court. An older gentleman, um, probably 20, 30 years on you and I, um, attorney, got a little animated, got very, it was an adjournment. We were going back and forth a little bit. He just punches me in the face. I
Oh
think I think
my,
I think he hurt himself in federal court. And the bailiffs mosey up. They're like, gentlemen, seriously?
that's
Like, is
un
this like, are we really gonna have a problem here? And I was like, it's fine if you like, let's pretend it didn't happen. Um, it was
wow.
just one of those things where it's like, you never know.
I think I'm jealous. I've never gotten somebody so upset that they can punch me out. Wow.
You know what? I said something rude. And I think he took it the wrong way. I said, I said, I think you may think you have nothing to lose. And I think what he heard is your career is over. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. But that's what he heard. And it was just,
Yeah,
he punched me before he thought about it. It was an instantaneous, like, whap. And
that's tough.
and
Wow.
it was whatever. You know what? You could even argue I might have deserved it. I did not mean it the way he took it, but
Yeah.
neither here
Yeah.
nor there. Um, any any other bloopers from a storied career?
Bloopers. I mean, there are bloopers every week.
Well, sure.
We're only human, right? We do our utter best. I can say, knock on wood, I've really only had successes. I've had occasional losses, and those are to be expected. 99% you're going to resolve positively by way of a verdict or a settlement, and every now and then you have a case that's a hiccup. But I've had positive bloopers. One of my best trials. I was up in the Bronx. I tried a case for a young woman who had been hit by a Salvation Army vehicle, and she was in a car. She wound up with a herniated disc in her neck, and it had to be operated on, and so forth. And I asked the jury for at the time, it was a good number of years ago now. I asked them for $5 million as a verdict. Uh, the jury went out to deliberate, sent a note back during lunch, and we had it read to us right after lunch. The judge said, "You can't smile when you hear this note, Jaffe." And I said, "I'm already smiling." Wow, you did that to me. And the jury said, are we bound by what Mr. Jaffe asked, or can we award more? So it was a positive blooper. I said, "This is fantastic. I can't believe it." And that was my Paul Newman moment,
That's
for the
amazing.
verdict. And the defense counsel went outside to go and call his insurance carrier and say, "This is what's happening. What do you want to do?" And they said, "No, no, let's just see what they have to say,"
Wow.
which was
Really?
crazy because you already knew they were giving more than $5 million at that point, and they returned a verdict of $7 million, and my client cried in the courtroom, thrilled to have gotten to that positive conclusion. It was fun.
Those moments fill your soul.
They fill your soul. That's right.
It's it's incredible.
I actually keep a drawer in my desk filled with all of the cards that people have written to me through the years. When I was a young lawyer, my boss, who became my partner, said to me, keep the bruised ego drawer at all times, at your ready, because there are going to be moments where you just feel so beat up by the way that something's been happening on a file or in the office or whatever it may be. You have to look over all the people whose lives you've positively impacted and remind yourself of the good that you do. And I do. It's right behind me. I must have 100 cards in there. Every now and then I look at them and say, yes, I remember that person, and it keeps you going.
That's incredible advice.
Yeah.
I used to have them framed and put them on the wall when I was young and foolish. And then a defense attorney came in and said, "That's I settled that case with you. That thank you card." And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And he was like, "You're breaking the confidentiality order by having the thank you note." And I was like, "Well, she doesn't say what she's thanking me for." And he
Right.
was like, "Don't test me on this. Take it down." And I thought about it and I was like, "You know what? It's not worth it. God
Yeah.
forbid, like just a thank you card. She could have been thanking me for dinner." But
Right.
fair enough.
Better safe
If you
than
really want to
sorry.
be,
Yeah.
you really want to fight about it, sir, the client comes first.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Somebody gets hurt. They haven't talked to an attorney yet. What should they be doing?
Call me.
That's
When
it. First thing is
That's
call
it.
you. Don't document, just call.
Well, okay. So and maybe I'm being a little bit flip.
No,
If
it's
you
good
want to,
advice.
no, it's a fair question. If you're in here's what you have to make sure that you do. Document that it happened document that it happened, the way that it happened, and document that it happened where it happened. This happens often in the day laborer cases, the construction workers who are brought from a hiring site to a construction project. They don't know who has hired them. They're going to get paid cash that day. They don't know the address where they're working. They don't know who the contractor is. They just know we're going to do siding or roofing or pointing work or whatever the case may be. They have an accident, and it often happens that after the accident, they're told, listen, we're going to drive you to a clinic. We're going to drop you off there. Let them know that you fell at home, that it's not work related. Here's 20 bucks, get yourself home, and don't, let us know how you're doing tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. And they go, they do that, and by doing what they have been asked to do, they have given up their rights. If you're injured on the job in the state of New York, you are covered by workers' compensation. You get your medical bills paid automatically, and you get your lost wages paid to you for the time period that you're disabled from work. If you report to the first person who sees you after an accident that you fell at home, not on the job, but at home, you've now abandoned your workers' compensation claim. You can't establish that you got hurt at work, and therefore you can't get your medical bills paid and you can't get your lost wages. On top of that, you probably didn't know where you were. And so now, if you can't identify the address where you had been working, I can't really figure out who the defendants are going to be because I don't know where the site was. And so I would suggest that in the event you are hurt on the job, number one, when you first get to the job, take a picture. Take a picture of where you are. That way, at least you can document that you've been there and that's where you were that day. Number two, report the truth. Always, always, always report the truth. If you go to a hospital, you go to a doctor, tell the hospital staff, tell the nurses at the doctor's office exactly what happened, the truth, because the truth can never hurt you. The truth is just the truth. If you don't, if you take somebody at their word that they're going to pay your medical bills and lost wages, I could pretty much guarantee you that's not going to happen, and you'll be out of luck. Once you're through that process, yes, call me and let me navigate the rest of it for you. But you ask a fair question. You should absolutely document it properly.
The way day laborers are treated in a variety of contexts, it's fairly horrific. We'll get cases where it's like the foreman's got a Confederate flag on his helmet. Um, the racial slurs are flowing like water. Like it's
Yeah.
insane, and and it's tough because it's like you want to bring the claim, but there's always concerns like, are, are you sure this is where you were? Like it can be jumbled. They're like, well, that was my job, say 3 weeks ago. Okay, how many times did you work there? Once ever. Okay. Yeah, well, do we have any witnesses? No, I didn't know anyone on the site. So it's just you. The site's not there anymore. And it can be daunting. You have to, it's like I don't even know. It's an outpouring of trust because you're gonna bury time, tens, if not hundreds of attorney hours, tens of thousands of dollars, and you just have to hope they get the details right, you know?
Yeah, no, that's correct. I had a day laborer case for a guy that got picked up from a site, brought to a three-story, three family home, and a worker above him dropped a hammer and hit him right in the head.
Oh.
He sustained pretty bad head injury and some optic nerve damage that caused his vision to be permanently damaged. And they took him 20, 25 miles away, dropped him in a clinic, and said, "Tell him you fell in your kitchen at home, and we'll see you later." He reported that he fell at work. To his
Good.
credit, he was
Thank
smart
God.
enough in the moment to say, "I fell at work," but he didn't know where he had been. And so he came to me and I said, do you at least have an indication as to who the employer was? If you don't know where you were working, do you know who picked you up? He had a card. He was wise enough to get a card of the employer, and I was able to start a special proceeding against the employer to compel him to provide me with the information for the address as to where they had been working. He wouldn't give it to me without a court order. The judge said give it to him, and he therefore was compelled to turn it over. At which point I was then able to establish that it was a three-family home, which falls within the labor law protected a covered structure, so that I could bring the claim for him and I could get him his recovery. Had it not been for the fact that he got the card and reported correctly to the facility, he would have been out of luck. I don't know many lawyers who would have put those pieces together. That was a lot.
Yeah, that's the proof. That's the proof in the pudding. And that's why I'm so thrilled to have you on today. I think a lot of attorneys, one, might not have had the inspiration, but two, wouldn't have embraced the risk and the responsibility there. And that's a great story. Thank you for telling that story.
Sure.
Listen, your information is going to be down below. Anyone who wants to talk to Michael, I think you should. If you've been harmed, I think it's listen, we can't vouch for anyone. But if I would if I could. Um, it's everything I'm hearing is a cut above, without a doubt. Is there anything you want to share with folks before we call it a day?
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your very kind words. I mean, I'm humble about who I am. I work hard. I've been very fortunate. I had a really good opportunity to represent really good people throughout my career, and maybe that's what's showing through. But when you take somebody by the hand and you get them to that positive conclusion, and it's a sigh of relief for yourself. It's a sigh of tremendous relief for your client. And I suppose that's really what you're seeing. So I appreciate your kind words. Very nice of you.
It's not kind words. I'm a tremendous asshole. What it is listen, the way you put that, the people who gave you the opportunity to represent them, that's a way people don't think, right? Like there's a lot of plaintiffs attorneys who think, these rubes, I'll get them to sign a retain, I'll get some money, and that's not how you're approaching it.
No,
You're approaching it. These people put faith in me. They put trust in me. I have responsibilities to these people, and that's what the plaintiff's bar needs. That's I don't know. Thank you for being here today. I
yeah,
listen.
thank you for having me. I
This
appreciate it.
is this is a joy. I hope you come on back on the channel in the future. I think you have a lot of stories to share.
Thank
Um, thank you again. And your information is all going to be in the description box down below. Folks, it's it's the sincerity speaks for itself. You can't always buy sincerity in this industry, which is a sad truth. This, I think there's no question. Thank you. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you. It's a pleasure as well. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Everybody, like, subscribe, comment down below, share the channel so it can grow. Take care.
Take care.